Velkommen til Døgnet 2017. Velkommen til CBS. Og giv en stor applaus til dagens vært, Charlotte Beder.
Tak skal I have. Velkommen også fra mig. Godt at se jer herinde alle sammen. Normalt sidder jeg jo på TV2 News, men nu har jeg fået lov at komme back to school, eller tilbage til skolebænken, som Søren Pind synes, vi skal kalde det, sammen med alle jer. Og jeg kan se, I sidder bænket godt og grundigt tæt, ligesom i de gode gamle dage, så det er jo i sandhed tilbage til skolebænken. Og til alle jer, der er med uden for auditoriet her, så kan jeg sige, at I kan det mindste glæde jer over, at I har lidt mere plads, end folk herinde har. Der er nogle enkelte trappepladser tilbage, hvis nogen foretrækker at sidde, ligesom dengang man var ung og studerende, på gulvet med notesblokken foran sig. Jeg kan godt forstå, hvis nogen, der I så den her introvideo, ikke alle ledere er fit for fremtiden, tænker, det der er en lille smule bekymrende, det der, jeg kan vide, om det er mig, der mangler en enkelt kompetence eller to af det, der skal til i fremtiden. Til jer kan jeg bare sige, I skal bare tage det helt roligt, fordi i dag der får I både svar på, hvad det er for kompetencer, I skal have i fremtiden, og I får også et par bud på, hvordan I kan få dem, hvis I skulle være i den uheldige situation, at I ikke har dem allerede. Så målet og håbet med i dag er, at alle går herfra om mange timer, lidt mere klædt på til det, der venter, end da I kom. Og mit håb er også, at I vil være rigtig flittige. Jeg kan se, at I allerede er det, mange af jer, med jeres telefoner. Ikke sådan på den måde, jeg synes, I skal tjekke mails og sms'e og spille Tetris og den slags undervejs, men I skal bruge konferenceappen til at være med til vores afstemninger, som vi vil have løbende gennem hele dagen, og så håber jeg også, I vil stille spørgsmål. Det kan I også gøre via den til alle de panelgæster, som vi har på programmet her i dag. Og med det fromme håb, synes jeg egentlig bare, at vi skal gå i gang med dagens første session. It's time to switch to English to answer one of the questions that I think many of you might be having on your mind right now. The question, what skills will be needed for future top executives? What will be the demands of the future? And to answer that question, I'm happy to tell you we have two experienced chairmen and a top executive recruiter with us today to give their perspective on which skills will be needed in the future. And why not go ladies first and introduce Chairman of Saxo Bank, Fønss Schrøder. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So it's really nice to be back. I have to say I graduated from CBS because last time I was giving a speech at Aarhus University, and that was with Smedegaard, and he was a hype because he came from Aarhus University, and I was nearly crawling round. So I'm from CBS. It's great to be back. Is this the device? Or? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I've been asked to come up with the 4 most important things for a leader today. And on top of my list is to be intelligent. And it's both with IQ and EQ, being forward-looking, being able to take a lot of information in. So I'll leave the education for the time being a little at the side, but to be intelligent, to be able to have a lot of balls in the air at one point in time, to be able to understand a very complex world. The world is getting more and more complex, not to be stressed because of all the input and to be able to perspectivize things, come out of the silo. So to possess grit, which for me is more than having stamina, is a very, very important skill set. So intelligence. The next one is to have good values. And to have good values is the morals, the ethics, to be able to really give the tone from the top, to be able to also navigate in the new codification of, say, good values. That is the UK Bribery Act, it's a US Bribery Act, it's the latest EU directive which have to be implemented from this year in listed companies. And on that, you have now, the board have to sign the CIS report in connection with the annual account from 2017. And it's interesting to see, I see what is going on in large corporation. Like Volvo, we were digging into it, and we thought we had, this is a Swedish culture, this is where even maternity leave is counting on your CV. So we thought we were really on top of this. But digging down to contractors, subcontractors, and subcontractors, it was not as we thought it was. So really to also have the interest from the top to go all the way down to be able to take that temperature. And that leads me to the third one, which is to be able to empower the organization, because a company will die if it doesn't grow. So you can't do it as a one-man show, even though Mr. Møller said to me, if it wasn't for all the numbers and papers, I could do everything myself. But you need more to grow. So in order to be able to this, to really create an agility in the organization, also to have a vision which is shared with the organization, it must be clear, they must want to go in that direction, they must be able to go in that direction, and they must be able to have the tools and the budgets and also to know their task. A very good example of this is Handelsbanken. I was sitting at the board of Handelsbanken for many years until I came to Saxo Bank. And it's amazing to see how even, say, in the last corner of the organization, that they knew the strategy. I think it was linked together with the ownership model, because every employee in Handelsbanken is a co-owner via their Octagon, which is a pension foundation. So they took an interest. But the ability to grow lately in UK, where they have been able to grow massively, because everybody knows exactly the strategy, full dedication. We never had anything coming up to the credit committee which wasn't kind of already scanned for all the things. There was like nothing to come after. So it was the opposite in that board, really trying not to rock the boat rather than to try to rock it all the time, because delegation is very strong when people know the vision. And be able to challenge the processes. Very, very important, because I see everything to build a great company is both in a direction, but there's also some circular processes in it where you have to revisit in order to develop. So to be able to do it, I think one example I have with me, and which I was a great part of, was the mass procurement, where I had this idea. I got this idea when visiting the car makers, in particular Volkswagen, who were very advanced. We were still calling it indkøb, and not even knowing the name procurement, and really to understand how you can change by understanding the components of what you demand. Why do you demand it? What is it it's going to do? It can really change a lot in a company. Another example is in Volvo, just the helmet for the car. It was quite expensive. Everything was expensive. As long as you should move things, it's very expensive to produce. And we were looking into how can we change it? And just asking the simple question, how many times do you have to open the helmet? And it was 50,000 times. And we said, why? Whoever opens the helmet to the engine 50,000 times. And it was from the old days where you opened and you were filling oil on, and it had to be very solid. So really to revisit everything all the time, to challenge the process and see your products as a prototype, which you all the time want to industrialize. These are the values I find are on top of my list.
Lone, and we'll discuss them later, but please have a seat. Next, chairman is the chairman of Vestas, Bert, Nordberg.
Thank you.
I hope it works for you, that clicker thing.
Yeah. Well, good morning. Hvordan går det? We do this in English. I think it's much better than my Danish. The good thing with this is that we, of course, we started to discuss investors sort of what are we really looking for, and we tried to put this on paper and try to discuss with our dear HR director Helle Bay, and we came to a conclusion where we have a number of skills or behavior that we are looking for. So the wind change. Yeah, the wind change, but the need of leadership is constant in our company. And I'm trying to see if this camera is following me. It's really nice. Anyway, so the first thing we're looking for is global mindset. Countries have borders, business has not. And to be able to adapt to different cultures in the world, to be able to take your bag, fly down to Pakistan, open an office, set up a company, and start to build a large project requires sort of a mindset of adapting to different cultures and so on. It's not like you take the Danish culture and try to implement that in Pakistan, I can promise you. And you don't take a Swedish either. So we have that sort of mindset as a prerequisite when we discuss with people. The other thing we look at is agility. And this is about that the world is moving so fast, and prerequisites are not the same in the morning. You can wake up in the morning and then suddenly a certain president has left the Paris Agreement. That might impact your business. And you need to adapt and you need to change. And you also need to be flexible in the way you do it. And you have to, but flexible is not enough. You have to have real agility to understand how to behave and how to handle those situations. So that's one of the skills we're looking for. On top of that, we're looking for courage. And we don't mix this with, we call it intelligent courage. It's not like stupid and brave. It's courage, doing the right thing, but also being brave, taking the decision out. Because when you do business like we do, 98% abroad, it's not like you call home and ask for everything and so on. We're looking for leaders who take the decision and move forward in every situation, based on the intelligence and based on the strategy that companies have. And this courage, of course, has to be in line with the vision, and it has to be balanced with realism in the way they're doing it. So that's what we think is very important. But it always comes down to the human factor. The human factor, we claim, is a skill, a different thing, because we have this triangle when we look at people. We look at their experience and we look at their skills, because you can read that in the CV. It doesn't give you very much. It gives you the basic hygiene factor for coming to take the discussion. But then comes the third dimension, which talk about the human factor and how people sort of behave in certain situations and so on, which you can't find out in a resume or something like that. And to us, different things are looked for in different companies and different industry. Our companies have human factors where we want to have leaders that inspire people. So when they stand here on stage, you shouldn't fall asleep. Sort of that's a good leadership. They also have to generate energy. Leaders who, when they've been into the room, they should have generated energy. They shouldn't have sucked up all the energy from the room where people sort of fall apart. That's what we're looking for, investors. That concludes it. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, as you may be able to see, is Richard Emerton, who is senior partner at Korn Ferry. So welcome to you, Richard.
Thank you, Charlotte. Good morning, everybody. You can imagine the huge relief I felt when Charlotte switched from Danish to English a little bit earlier on. Thank God. And of course, one of the disadvantages of coming third is that most of what I wanted to say has already been said. And thank you to Bert and Lorna for those thoughts. At Korn Ferry, for those of you who know us, we spend a lot of our life dealing with, either through search or through development, senior leaders and CEOs. And we spend a lot of time researching what it is that seems to make great CEOs and great leaders. And a lot of the things that the previous two speakers have mentioned are included on that list. But we think there are a number of critical attributes of great CEOs that we see today. And the thing about today, of course, is that the world for organizations is very different than it was yesterday. And I don't need to talk to you too much about that, but it's a world of disruption. It's a world that's global. It's a world where consumers have so much more power than they used to. It's a world where the relationship between employer and employee is now very different. And it's a world where everything changes very, very quickly. So whereas yesterday, organizations were designed as structures that allowed leaders to plan and then to act and then to scale, today organizations are more like networks that have to sense and respond and learn and adapt. They're very different things today. And therefore, the way in which they have to be led is very different. And in that world, we think there are kind of 4 lessons for CEOs. The first of those is a key role of the chief executive is to have a core purpose and to be able to educate the organization around that purpose. As someone once said, it was a much wiser person than me, if a man already knows the answer to the question why, then he'll be able to work out the answer to the question how. And when you think about the networked organizations that many of you are leading today, those people at the furthest reach of your business, you can't tell them how to do anything. They have to act so quickly and respond so fast. But if they know the reason why, then you can trust them to act in the right way. So purpose is critical. And of course, in that world, you can't have strategy that's going to allow you to control a business. You can't have control systems that allow you to do that because it's so far-flung and dispersed. Some interesting bits of research that support that. Many of you may be aware of some research called the Stengel 50 recently, where there was an analysis of 50,000 companies, brand-based companies, and the top 50 in terms of value growth over a 10-year period were those who had at their heart a purpose to improve people's lives. There's quite a lot of dispute and debate around that study, but it's a great statistic. And let me just read you a quick quote before I move on. Many of you will recognize this. Too many companies have a poor answer for that, or at best a complex one. We have a very simple answer. We strongly believe that play is vital for a child's development, just as food, love, and good health are. So we exist to make a material that no one else can make, and we've transformed this very simple idea into an integrated global business system and optimized it. What I really care about is the product and children's development. So while we need to make money, the Lego Group has a deeper purpose than that. Our purpose is to make a difference in children's lives by giving them wonderful play experience and bringing this experience to every child on the planet. Purpose. The second, as Bert mentioned, is agility. In this world, organizations have to move so fast. We all know that. What's the role of the CEO, though, in creating an organization like that? So we find that great leaders and the best CEOs are themselves very agile. They are self-disruptors. They're happy to throw things away and start again. They're happy to be educated and change their minds. CEOs with that skill are quite rare, and all too often organizations confuse high performance with agility. And whilst it's true that about 13% of high performers are also highly agile, the far better fact is that 85% of highly agile leaders are indeed high performers. So agility in today's world is critical. And again, you'll excuse me using the same quote, the same person, but as Knutstorp said, every year we throw away the trophies, we throw away any sense of self-congratulation, we start all over again. We ask ourselves, how can we make our playing material even more exciting? The answer to that is by reinventing ourselves every year and executing the system again. So being prepared to start again. Thirdly, team. When a CEO is trying to lead an organization like this, the role of that team, that top team and the teams below that is so important. And the cascade of purpose and the cascade of agility through that team is critical. You'll all know Jim Collins' definition of a level 5 leader, which is someone who drives and creates the context within which a team can be successful. Today, it's even more than that. Today's CEO is a coach to his or her team. And that's really tough, because a CEO has to struggle with the one hand being the manager, the top of a hierarchy, and that's someone who's in charge, but then to switch into the role of a colleague and a partner and a coach in order to help the team understand the purpose and to help that team then drive that purpose down into the organization. So team. And then finally, humanity. And this is a bit different to the human factor that Bert talked about. And it's a little bit more to do with the mention that Lorna made of corporate responsibility. Again, a couple of quotes you'll recognize. There is one and only one social responsibility of business. This is Milton Friedman from 1970. To use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profits, so long as it stays within the rules of the game, which is to say, engages in open and free competition without deception or fraud. Interestingly, you then have Paul Polman, about 4 years ago. I don't think our duty is to put shareholders first. I say the opposite. What we firmly believe is that if we focus our company on improving the lives of the world's citizens and come up with genuinely sustainable solutions, we are much more in sync with consumers and society, and this will result in good shareholder returns. In Friedman's world, organizations tended to be domestic and were controlled by local regulatory organizations and bodies. In Polman's world, organizations are global, and there is no controlling regulatory body. But organizations instead today have a social license to operate. And if they break that social license or the relationship with society, then society will tend to punish them for it. So if you have an IT failure, that means that 75,000 of your most loyal passengers are stuck in airports for a weekend, and you don't seem to care, then guess what? As the FT said the other day, BA's got 2 weeks to save itself. Because that appalling lack of care for customers will be punished as people move away. Or if you cheat emissions tests, or various other things that we all know about, you are breaking that social license to operate, and in today's world, consumers and employees will start to punish you. So the role of the CEO is to really stand for that social license, to be visible in terms of believing about humanity in the world. And another, just to close, another Knutstorp quote. The guy's got everything, I tell you. One way of doing that is to focus less on financial performance and more on how motivated and creative our employees feel and how our customers feel. To what extent are children putting our products at the top of their wish list and talking to their friends about it? What kind of reputation do we have? Are we a trusted company? Because if we're trusted by the public, and if children recommend our products to other children, and if our employees feel engaged, then we're sure to succeed. So it's by thinking in these terms that we remove complacency, maintain our culture, and create value.
Thank you.
it had to, being a consultant, it had to have a nice little mnemonic. So CEO as pathfinder, I think is a lovely sentence. But anyway, thank you very much.
And on that note, thank you, Richard. Have a seat. And thank you for sitting through that fire alarm, whatever it was. Everybody kept calm. That's nice. Keep up the good work. Now, thank you all for listing those skills that you look for. I'd like now to involve the crowd, because we sort of tried to boil these things down. You've all said there was a little bit of overlap. So we boiled all these skills down to 8, and I'd like you all to get out your telephones and go to your conference apps, because we would like you to rate these 8 boiled down skills as to how important you believe they are for future managers. So if you think they're really important, you just pull that tab all the way to the right. If you think they're less important, don't. And we'll have the results in just a few minutes from what you think about these skills. But first of all, maybe starting with you, Lone, lots of skills. Have you ever met anyone, any top executive, any leadership talent who had all of these skills?
Yeah, I actually have. I think all the great leaders I have been working for have possessed these skills. However, in many organizations, we have also, where I've been at the board, we have changed, and just recently IKEA changed the CEO. I was just thinking about it, and I know Kim Fønss is not here today because he's in the UK. That is the only company I'm in where we haven't changed the CEO, but he is the owner. So it's very interesting, and it leads me to, are we checking enough when we are employing a CEO? It's very rare that we actually test CEOs as we would with, say, I was just flying in this morning from Stockholm with SAS. Knowing the pilot, he was a fighter pilot, I'm so happy. It was very windy, and you feel safe because you know he has been tested. But how often are we testing the CEOs? It's actually quite seldom. How often are we testing the chairman? So this is something I think we should consider. So because there's a different, the man you see, and the man he really wanted to be, and the man he is. That's 3 dimensions of a person. And I think according to a McKinsey study, 63% of all CEOs in private equities companies are changed within the first 13 months. Interesting.
How about you, Bert? You check everyone you hire in order to make sure they have all of these skills?
No, I think the most important thing to me is that if they come to my room, they pass the basic hygiene test of skills and background and so on. I spend a lot of time on references and focus a lot on their behavior in different situations. I think that I happen to think that an interview of 2 hours gives nothing. You have to talk to people who have worked with them in a stress situation, when business go up and business go down, and so on. And that's how to me, I get the feeling for how they perform and so on. So the CVs are good in a sense that you sort of get the people you're looking for, but then the one you're hiring, you need to go very, very deep. And I think that every person have some weaknesses. And then you have to see if you can live with that and how you can complement them to work, even if they have weaknesses because very few have everything.
So if you're sitting out there thinking, I have maybe a few weaknesses, you're not alone. That's good to know.
Still a chance.
You hire people for a living, top executives. Do you agree on how to find out that people have these skills, and do you need to go back and check every other year that the CEO still performs? How do you see that?
I completely agree with all the points that have been made, and particularly the last point, Bert, that few leaders have all of the skills we've been talking about. As we were communicating before the conference, I think I sent an email to Fleming saying, looks like we've identified Superman, because these are an extraordinary range of skills. I do, by the way, completely agree with Bert's point about the difference between a CV and a human being. People tend to be hired because of their CV and then fired when you find out what the human being that you've recruited. And therefore, the importance of getting underneath a human being and understanding what they are is critical. And to answer your question, one of the processes that we use, and absolutely a 2-hour interview is not enough, is that we do a lot of work with companies looking at the development of internal CEO successors. And those people go through a 2-day program with us where we put them in the role of a CEO. So we observe them being a CEO and we test them in the role of a CEO, doing things that a CEO has to do. Because I think it's so important that you're able to really test people before you get there. So I agree, not everyone has all the skills, and absolutely it's important to really know the person you're appointing.
And looking forward, is what's on the CV less important than the human going forward? You talk about values and courage and more human traits. Is CV decreasing in importance and the person you are becoming more important?
I think it's a combination. I was revisiting very early notes, say from many, many years back, to see what I had of opinion at that point in time. For many years I was sitting in mass remuneration committee, and notes from that, what did we put on top as great values? And it was the same. So that's the same. It's more complex now. You even more have to break down the silos, but it's the same. But experience, I also think, is quite important, both for a CEO and chairman, because if you have seen a situation before, if you have been through it, you are more ready. The other thing is that you have to approach things from various angles. And if you look at it from that angle and that perspective, that really changes also your ability to be very agile. So I think it's a combination.
A combination. Right. Now, everybody, if you have questions for the panel here, please send them via the app. But I think maybe we might have a result of how you rated the different competencies and skills. So let's see what we have. It's we have a very high score on team leadership and the agility that you also mentioned, all of you. But it's generally rated quite high, all of it. Everybody has to be Superman, I think. That would be nice. Bert, what's your comment on the result from the crowd here?
I don't know how to comment it. I think that the skills differ what industries you are in and the need and so on. And if you sit here and think I'm going to work in banking and that's where my future is, and I'm looking at more engineering-like skills, they might differ quite a lot. But when it comes to leadership, I think it doesn't differ so much when it comes to leadership skills, depending between the industries. But the trend to me is that you can't move from one industry to another. There is an increased demand of industry knowledge also in the CEO positions, and knowledge about what's going on. It's a little bit what you talked about, having the best product. And if the CEO has no clue on the development of that product, the platforms or the software or wherever you are, it's very hard to lead a company in the future. I'm not a big believer in jumping around from different industry. I think it's good to have industry knowledge when you lead a company.
Do you agree?
I think there are a number of technical experiences, and technical in the broadest term, that I think are relevant when you appoint any CEO, and to certainly industry experience is part of that. But I think there is a breadth that you can look through. So, for example, if you're running a large consumer-focused global industry, a hotel business, for instance, then I think you can look at other consumer sectors like travel and leisure and others. But I think if you're looking to recruit a CEO for a bank, you need someone who knows how to run a bank. So there are some industries that are much more technical, some where I think you can look slightly further afield because it's a broader degree of understanding that's needed. But then beyond the industry, it's then, do they have global experience? Has this person ever built a business in Asia, etc.? There are other specific experiential elements that will be important as well as industry background.
And how would you rate that industry experience? You're chairman of a bank. Would you ever hire a CEO who had nothing to do with the banking business before? Is that you have to have that along with all these competencies too?
I come from a company, I was kind of educated in Maersk, where we jumped around. I was the CEO for our airline, and the next morning I was heading our supply vessels. I didn't even know the speed of a vessel. I thought you could move it around like an aircraft. So in Maersk we said it was 5 months. In 5 months you should be able to pick up all the essentials. And actually, if you plan it good enough, if you have like 40% is something we don't discuss. This is just standard for the company. And 60% is the content. And you have specialists around you. I think there's a danger in being too siloed, because I just came from China. WeChat is a big thing now in China, and that's not a vertical platform. It's more a horizontal platform. And what is WeChat? It started like communication, and now they're building everything, and you can live your life on WeChat. So I think we have to get out of these silos. Then you need, when you are, and if you are a banking CEO, and now I'm a chairman of a bank, I need to know the 55,000 pages of Lehman Brothers aftermath implementation of compliance. So, but that's different.
But are you in a silo, Bert? Or, I mean, if you get a leader who has all of these competencies, can't you teach them the technology?
Yeah, no, but it's sort of a... I don't think I'm in silo. If you take, I came from Ericsson, so you can say telecom is not, and I actually run Sony Ericsson, which is consumer products, and then suddenly you show up in Vestas.
What's the parallel?
No, actually, it's much. There's so many commonalities. We sell infrastructure. Ericsson sell infrastructure. We are dependent on political decision. Ericsson are dependent on licenses from government. We have a map system that keep track of winds. Ericsson have a map system, which happen to be the same map system that keep tracks of radio wave over the nature. We have a project management system where following the economy of projects, which is the same as Ericsson. And the technology is much simpler, because in the mobile phone you keep track of people, where they are, have they paid a bill, and things like that. The turbine generates power, period. So there is a lot of commonalities, and the business is global. So I think, and it's very engineering heavy, extremely engineering heavy. So to me, it wasn't as big step as you can think, even if I have to spend 8 months in the beginning in the company full time. It's as chairman, which is not the way it should be, but at that time it was there. So I got a lot of learnings. But I think that in a sense, I'm in an engineering silo. Yes.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't fit a bank.
So Lone is not going to call you with a job. We'll know that now. Let's get back to the competencies, the skills, the 8, because I'd like you guys to rate them once again. And this is the moment of truth. We just heard Bert admitting to being in an engineering silo. And now it's time to look at your silos. Would you look down the list of skills and please rate where your weaknesses are, just to get them out in the open? And maybe we should start with you. Maybe we could get the competencies up on screen, and I'd like each of you to look at them and say, where are your weak spots? Because someone here said everyone has weaknesses. Can we get the list of skills? Just take... Yeah, we have them there. I don't know if you can read it, but Richard, would you do the honors of just admitting to where you have a potential to develop?
So I spent 20 years of my life, the last 10 as a partner with Arthur Andersen, and then I became a headhunter. So some would say I've never had a proper job. So I spend my life working with others, and there have been 2 stages in my life where I felt I've had a real purpose that has really excited me, and which I've then been able to engage others with. One of those was a period at Arthur Andersen. One of those is now, where I lead the work that we do around chief executive succession. So I have now a deep personal purpose of helping boards make sure they appoint the best chief executive. And so many boards get that wrong. And it's a fascinating set of conversations you have with boards, as I'm sure both of you have had many times, around what it is that a great CEO is going to look like for your organization. And that is something that I personally now I am absolutely driven by, and I have a team that are absolutely driven by that. But that's something that I've only recently managed to build. And I've spent many years not really having a purpose other than just working with clients and selling the next project, which is extremely disappointing. So that's one area I've developed in. Agility, something that we all think we'd like to be agile. We all think we are agile. Very few of us are truly agile. And the ability to throw things away quickly, to fail fast and move on, is a rare skill. And I'm probably not as agile as I would like to be or should be.
Lone, what would yours be?
Yeah, you know Helene Christensen, the top model, she says, I would never tell about what I don't like with my face. I live of it. So if you take that, I think one new feature in the world is actually being able to understand what you can do with the cloud. What can you do with coding? All that has been, for me, in the past couple of years, something I've really jumped into. I'm making fintech tech software now. Came out of a total, say, shyness from understanding technology on a deeper level, but understanding you couldn't kind of live off being an oil person. Wasn't really, before you was really proud being an oil person, now you don't even dare telling your children that you have been so heavily into oil. So I think rather to have that openness to take new information in and teach yourself and working closely also, not only say on a surface because that's easy enough, but really dive into it and sit together with the coders, understanding UX, understanding UI, really understanding. So I think rather this is a new thing for me, really to take the things which you don't feel that comfortable with, but be convinced that you can really build a knowledge and you can be very. I was so happy for a headline that when I was nominated to become the Saxo Bank chairman that I was tech savvy. My children were laughing so much.
Right, Bert, what would be your weakness?
Well, I think it's a lot of keeping my fingers out of things. I'm impatient, and I sometimes dig in too deep into things that maybe shouldn't be done by the board. But my interest of digging into in production, in design, and other things sometimes might irritate people. I do it for their own best, but...
Right. Right, well, there we have yours. Let's see what the crowd thinks. Oh, we have the weakest spot would be a global mindset. I guess that would be not so good. Lone?
Yeah, I have a comment on it because I was sitting a couple of years ago in Denmark's globalization board, and it's really a problem. I was not surprised to see this, and I think this is something Denmark really have to pull ourselves together. We have a lot of capabilities. Most bright people here, next to Sweden, who really have some bright people, but a very high level in Denmark. But we tend to. I live in Stockholm now. I'm out of Denmark, and when I'm in Denmark, I'm surprised to see how Danish it is. And my God, we are only 5 million people. It's a very small country, and we launch our products here thinking that Denmark can be a pilot for our products. So revisit, there is on the internet, this globalization report is there. It was a fantastic work the public Denmark was doing, but really challenge your organization, higher language competence and also the understanding, because as Bengt is saying, it's so different in other countries. You need to understand how to approach it. But it's a tremendous problem. What is it we're going to live off in Denmark for the future?
we'll leave that question hanging because there goes the bell, and being back to school, you have to listen to the bell and adhere to it, unlike what the Minister Søren Pind did before. But thank you. Let's give the crowd a big hand. Thank you so much. Og så er det på tide at gå videre i dagens program, for I er jo i skole. I har alle sammen jeres skoleskema om halsen, så I kan se, hvor I skal videre hen til nu. God fornøjelse med resten af skoledagen.
Godmorgen, her er jeres rektor for i dag. De næste 3 timer skal I til undervisning. I skal enten til forelæsning, til et møde med de studerende eller gruppearbejde, og I skal møde til tiden. Her er der ikke noget, der hedder ulovligt fravær. Hvor I skal hen, står på jeres navneskilt. Efter et dobbelt frikvarter starter jeres første undervisning 10:30. I skal være der til tiden. I skal selvfølgelig også være undervisningsparate og tændte. I dag skal I ikke til eksamen. Det skal studerende normalt. Men jeg regner alligevel med, at I fuldt tændte, lytter, opmærksomme, indgår i dialogen og er gode studerende hele dagen. Kære dagens VL-elever, kan I have en rigtig god undervisningsdag på CBS. Velkommen.